Welcome back. I'm Chris Moore with HVAC Pro Blog, and I'm excited to share a live webinar I just recently recorded on creating a residential sales plan. This is a fast-paced webinar where we cover the basics of developing a sales plan and those elements that factor in. Things like sales goal, average sale, and close rate is all you need to know in order to drill down to figure out how many visits or leads per day you need to do, as well as how much sales volume daily you need to sell. Of course, at the end of the presentation, I cover ways to improve so that way you can hit that sales goal in 2022. Without further ado, let's get to the training. The first thing you need to know in order to develop your plan is a sales goal, right? So you have to come up with a number. I'm not gonna tell you what your number needs to be. I'm not gonna say that your number is too low or too high. I'm just going to tell you that based on this number, the information you need to know in order to actually hit that goal, okay? So first off, when it comes to sales goals, I want to make sure you are setting an aggressive goal for 2022, especially with the current climate, right? You should be setting a significant goal for 2022 regarding your sales goal and your sales plan. Now, this goal really should be based on your experience, right? How many years you've been in, how many sales calls you can run, how long your tenure at your company's been, the support you have at your company. Just because you want to sell $4, $5, $6 million this year doesn't mean you have the installation crews in order to actually do that, right? Company support is also a big one. And then fortunately, pretty much throughout the entire country, market conditions are great right now. You shouldn't be held back because of your market condition in 2022. So these are the few key things that go into a sales goal. One thing I want to tell you is obviously I've been in the industry since I was 17. That was a little bit of time ago, just probably like almost everybody here on the screen. It's one of those things where even in the year 2000, I heard $1 million as a sales goal. And I thought, God, $1 million, right? Imagine selling $1 million, but everybody knows that that's not that much now, right? $1 million, if you just adjust for inflation, think about what that could be, right? And I'm going to use a tool, something that most people probably know about, and that's a Burger King Whopper, right? So if anybody can in the chat here, tell me what they think the cost of a Whopper was in the year 2000. Any guesses? A Whopper in the year 2000 was only 99 cents, right? So if we were to adjust a 99-cent Whopper for inflation, today that would be $2.17, which actually would be a great deal, right? Nobody's out there paying $2.17 for a Whopper. If you guys want to take a guess what I paid last Saturday for one, because my wife loves Whoppers, we paid almost $9 for one Burger King Whopper. I didn't have the little receipt that you can exchange for free and take the survey, right? So that is a huge difference compared to 2000 and compared to adjusted for inflation. And you have to think about why. Why does a Whopper cost $9 if we only adjusted for a small amount of inflation every year since the year 2000? And that's because the cost of every ingredient to make the Whopper went up. The labor, the transportation, everything went up. So therefore, the end result, the Whopper itself, costs $9 instead of just $2.17. So when you come up with a sales goal, it's really important to not just think about inflation, but to also think about the cost of everything that goes into that installation that you're selling, that comfort that you're selling, right? Really, really important. Prices go up. If you guys didn't know, on average, most HVAC equipment went up last year to date, year over year, 12%. All right, some manufacturers more, some less. Installation essentials like piping and stuff went up more like 26% in 1 year. So you need to adjust your sales goal based on the increased prices, right? That's one key thing. If you adjusted a $1 million sales goal in the year 2000, today in 2020, the end of 2020, so last year's sales goal would have been 1.5 million. All right, that's a significant jump just for inflation, not including price increases, right? And not just the increases of your costs when it comes to indirect goods like the materials and the equipment, but think about your labor costs and the costs of insurance and the burden of labor, right? So all of that stuff has gone up in the last 20 years. But imagine if you were just 10% better. So 10% better in the year 2001 would have meant your sales goal was 1.1 million. And if you were to continually be 10% better every year for the last 20 years, your sales goal last year should have been $6.7 million. All right, that's a huge jump. And I don't know many people that set goals that high in the residential HVAC business, but I do know a guy that has a goal of $8 million in Massachusetts this year, and he hit it. He is at least 10% better year over year. And he makes a plan and actually executes the plan. But remember, a goal without a plan, it's just a wish. This was actually penned way back in the 40s by a French pilot. Obviously, he was a commercial pilot, Antoine Saint-Exupéry. He wrote the book called The Little Prince. He actually went missing in the year 1944 during World War II. But a very famous quote, obviously attributed to a not so famous man. You may not know who said it, but really important. You need to have a plan in order to reach your goal, okay? So if you've been in corporate America over the last 20 years, you're probably very familiar with the acronym SMART when it comes to goals. And this actually helps you develop a plan. If your goal is SMART, meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to the day, and of course, time bound. I want to reach this plan by a certain day or date. If it meets this acronym, you most likely are putting a plan together, not just a goal. All right. So SMART acronym, really important. When you set these goals, you have to think about these specific pieces. So the other information you need to know in order to develop a sales plan is two pieces: average sale and close rate. And then with that information, your goal, your average sale and close rate, we are able to come up with so many other things that can really help you nail down a specific plan for 2022. So the first piece I want to talk about is average sale. And really all you have to do is take your sales volume last year and divide it by your number of jobs sold. Really, really simple. I would hope you're tracking at least this. This is a really important measure in order to find out how many sales calls I need to do and all that stuff, right? So your total sales volume, this is gross, meaning before you take all the costs and everything out, divided by number of jobs sold, all right? So as an example here, if my goal was $1.5 million and I sold 150 jobs last year, easy math, right? Trying to keep it zeros here. Then my average sale was $10,000. Really, really easy. Let me ask it, do you think this is good? $10,000 may be good. Depends on what your goal was. Depends on probably what your close rate was, right? So if my average sale was $10,000 and I didn't run very many leads, okay, that's probably really good. If I ran a crap load of leads and my close rate was really bad, maybe $10,000 per sale is not good, right? And your close rate is your number of jobs sold divided by the number of leads you run, all right? You're not Superman. If you've never tracked this, it can be eye-opening, all right? It's really important that if you show up to the house, that counts as a lead. You can't write off that it wasn't a lead, all right? If you went to the home, it's a lead. It's not, I didn't give them a quote because I had so many to do and that wasn't a lead, right? Or I had to reschedule or whatever the reasoning people come up with, all right? If you show up, it's a lead. The total number of jobs sold versus number of leads run gives you close rate. The industry average across the United States, and this is just from personal experience talking with my colleagues and every salesperson I see on a daily basis, is somewhere around 35%. This year, that number ticked up a little bit. People are closing like it's going out of style. So I've seen as high on average, close to 50% this year, but that's not across the board all the time. If you tracked your close rate, use your actual close rate. If you're not sure, take an educated guess, but I'm telling you, you're not Superman. You're not closing at 90% all the time. If you're not tracking this yet, that you do going forward so you can develop a really solid plan for years to come. And ideally, we want this close rate to go up every year because we're making adjustments and we're making changes. So those are the three key pieces of information in order to develop your plan. You need to know your goal, you need to know your average sale and your close rate. And then the tool that I created, I'm going to show you here, you enter those three numbers in, and of course you can change the numbers and see what you need to do, and you're going to be able to find the most amazing information. You take your aggressive sales goal and you divide it by your average sale, and you're going to end up with the number of wins that you need, how many jobs you need to close, okay? Now, obviously, with those number of jobs closed, you divide that by your close rate. And when you enter this close rate, it needs to be in the decimal point, right? So 35% close rate would be entered as 0.35 decimal point. And that will then tell you the number of visits you need to make next year. Closed jobs divided by your close rate gives me number of visits. In this example, I need to make 429 visits to homes next year. Then we need to adjust work weeks because we do not work 52 weeks. We shouldn't, especially if we're the owner or the salesperson, right? We shouldn't be working 52 weeks, all right? We need to adjust for the 8 slowest weeks of the year. That's across the board in the United States. There's gonna be slow weeks. There was very few slow weeks in 2021. There may be more in 2022, but we need to adjust for the 8 slowest. We need to plan for vacation. If you take 4 weeks of vacation, you need to deduct that from the 52 weeks. You take 2 weeks, you're just deducting 2, right? And then of course, 10 paid holidays. Those are federal holidays. That's another 2 weeks, right? So we're starting at 52, but then we would deduct 14 weeks there in order to end up with 38 weeks, right? So we're gonna divide the number of visits by work weeks in order to get how many visits I need to make per week. Really easy math here, but the calculator does it for you. So 429 divided by 38 weeks gives me 11.3 visits a week I need to make in order to close at 35% with a $10,000 average ticket to meet my sales goal by the end of the year. Then of course, you divide that by 5 days a week and you'll get leads per day. Now this calculator is just gonna show 1 decimal point, but the math works out to 2 decimal points to make it more accurate. So we need to make somewhere between 2 to 3 leads per day in order to make our goal based on our close rate, our average ticket, all that stuff that goes up, right? Keeps rolling up. Now, if we take our average sale and multiply it by our close rate and multiply it by leads per day, it'll actually tell us the daily sales volume that we need to sell every day. And why would we want to know this? Because $1.5 million is a huge goal, right? Especially if you've never set a goal in the past. And if you're not keeping score, how do you know how to react as the year goes, right? So as an example here, I happen to be from Massachusetts, and when it's 2 minutes left in the third quarter and we're down 25 points, we need to make some changes in order to win the game, right? It's pretty obvious. So when you get to June or July, if you're way behind your goal and you're not meeting your daily sales volume, what are the things that you can do to increase those sales, to increase your close rate or your average sale in order to reach your sales goal, right? There's a few key things that you can change to win the game by the end of the fourth quarter, right? So the number one thing that I see most people do, which should be a last resort, is try to work 8 days a week. It's impossible. You could do maybe 6 days a week, but I wouldn't make that for the entire year. I would run maybe Saturday leads, a couple of leads, because those tend to close at a higher rate for most residential sales calls, maybe during the peak times when I need to catch up. You could work more weeks, which means less vacation time, or if there's not as many slow weeks during the year because of, a mild winter, let's say, that might make it more slow in the Northeast, but less slow somewhere else, right? And this really, running more leads should be a last resort. Instead of running 2 to 3 leads a day, maybe you run 4 leads a day. That's gonna be a lot of work, all right? You need to have tools in place in order to actually run that many leads. Hopefully nobody's running more than 4 leads per day. I mean, we can have a separate sidebar conversation about that, all right? So the number one thing you can do, which should be a last resort, is run more leads. That's easy math, right? Everybody sees where that comes from. The next piece that you could do, which is probably the easiest that everybody kind of omits, is just increasing your average ticket. And there's a lot of things that you can do to increase your average ticket. Some of the most obvious is adding a labor warranty. Many companies out there that offer this, I'm not going to go into details. I'm not selling this sort of thing. I just want to let you know that by adding a labor warranty and marking it up as part of your deal, you should be able to hopefully close at a higher rate and have a higher average ticket, including things up front like maintenance agreements. One really important thing, especially recently with the concerns of viruses and mold and different things, is IAQ products. Every single new installation that you're putting out there, whether it's ducted or ductless, should have an IAQ product on there. And then of course, offering multiple solutions and making sure you're selling higher efficiency equipment. These will all increase your average ticket, which will help you get to your sales goal faster by the end of the year. And then of course, The third thing, which is probably the toughest because it's a year-long process, is to increase your close rate. The number one way that you can increase your close rate is to follow a process. You would not believe how many people out there that do residential HVAC sales have never been trained and they are winging it, all right? I'm willing to bet some of the people on the call here started winging it when they first started doing sales. And then you realize, oh my God, I need to get some training. There's just very few people in our trade that get sales training. It's unfortunate, and people are successful in spite of it. But imagine if you did get training and you followed a process, what your close rate could be, or what your average ticket could be, right? I think the number one thing that people do when they're winging it is they email proposals. And this is because they typically don't invest in something simple like software in order to provide a quote in-home before you leave. You don't have to close the job. It doesn't have to be a one-call close. I get the concerns there and why you're not comfortable. If you're not comfortable doing that sort of process, don't. But it doesn't mean you can't give somebody a price before you leave. If you think about this, imagine if I went to like a place like Best Buy and I wanted to buy a television and I was only offered one television, and when I asked what the price was, they said, I'm not so sure, I have to go back and work some numbers and I'll email you tomorrow what the price is. Think about the trust loss there. And I would probably go look for another quote or go down the street where I can see all the solutions, all of the TVs, and make the decision based on what I value and what I want, right? So it's really important that you're able to provide that price ASAP. Don't email it. And with technology these days, I mean, you guys are on a webinar right now. It's really easy to schedule a follow-up Zoom call in order to do your presentation if you can't get back out there in person because of whatever reason. Maybe both decision makers weren't there or whatever the reason. Don't just email the proposal, because guess what? Then you lose the ability to, overcome any objections, and it really just becomes about price at that point. And you don't want to be the lowest price. You want to provide the highest value. And no excuses. If somebody's asking you to email a proposal to them, have a pre-planned, you workshop this explanation as to why you don't email proposals. It's really important, otherwise your close rate is going to go in the toilet. Or right now, it might be less than that average of 35% because you are emailing all your proposals, okay? Don't get me wrong, some people have success here, but it's the few that are in between that are having success by emailing proposals. Very, very few. If you're having great success, imagine if you weren't emailing proposals, what your close rate could be. So what did you think? Are you gonna set an aggressive sales goal for 2022 and do minor things to make sure that you plan well in order to hit it? If you found value in this video, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the new stuff I come out with weekly. As always, thanks for joining me at HVAC Pro Blog, where we provide advice for residential system design, quality installation, and system diagnosis. I'll see you soon.